Hi, I'm Joan Newcomb, and today's morning musings is The Other Side of the Veil. I'm doing a series of daily morning musings, and I'm using posts from my blog, Adventures in Density and Effort, as inspiration. Now, I wrote these a while ago, and the world has completely transformed since then. So if I encounter anything that is out of date, I will interrupt myself and give you the most recent information. If necessary, at the end, I will give you a summary of the topic based on what's going on in the world today. Also, I have some special offers, so stay tuned to the very end to see what they are. The Other Side of the Veil. The more readings I do, the more sensitive I become, and I've been doing a record number of readings for me over this past year. I've been hesitant about developing my ability to talk with dead people because I don't want to become Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost. As an empath, I felt inundated enough with the living. The increase, however, has been very subtle and so far not invasive. Since moving into my current home nearly 3 years ago, I've occasionally smelled cigarette smoke. At first, I was wondering if it came from outside, but the windows were closed, and where I particularly smell it is far from the neighboring driveway, which is where I assumed someone would be smoking. I also wonder if it had to do with our wood stove's chimney, but it's distinctly tobacco smoke. Then I wondered if it's my ex, who's alive, and who I'll still tune into because of our connection with our kids. However, I suspect it might be the property's original occupant, who lived there from 1963 till his death in 2003. Except it's not the original home. It was torn down to the studs and rebuilt, so it's not the physical building that would still be reeking. I just learned that this fellow had cancer and shot himself in a building no longer standing outside of our house. Okay, as I typed this last sentence, I suddenly became very aware of his presence, and it felt like my lungs were filled with smoke. Now, I don't have any ethics around suicide. I believe that when we pass, we shift into a world of love and joy. However, I have read folks who've passed and can see residue within them if they were on medication or drugs when they died. And I know when someone dies suddenly, like in an accident, they're still around physically for a while, usually not for 7 years. In this case, I also know that this person was a lifelong alcoholic, so what I was sensing was the personality level that was left behind. I took some time out to do a cleansing process by Michelle Smallwright in her Paralandra Garden workbook, which I'll link below. It releases energy from a location in a gentle, co-creative way so that it can move on to its next evolution. I chose this for my spiritual toolkit because it's non-resistant, unlike my original techniques that I was trained in, which is kind of like for exorcism, and resistance only attracts or perpetuates that which you're resisting. So it's clear now, but I'll do a follow-up later on today. What just happened was an interesting illustration of experiencing the other side. Until I knew the details, my awareness of this being was subtle. He'd been dead a while, and the longer they've been gone, the more diffuse their energy feels to me. But when I focused specifically on him, his energy came right in, literally. I was aware of the desperation to be acknowledged, and at the same time, I knew it was appropriate to assist him with shifting to his next level of evolution. It seems to me that your loved ones who have passed would love to be acknowledged by you. If you're thinking of them, they're still around. They're not necessarily stuck. Often they're around by choice. A block to communication is the energy of grief. The more fully you allow yourself to mourn the loss of the physical relationship, the clearer the spiritual connection becomes. Bottom line, you're not crazy and they're not ghosts. They're just non-physical. And I do feel that any unresolved issues, resentments, dissipate when they pass. If you had an abusive parent or narcissistic one, those aspects dissolve and their essence is easier to connect to. A lifetime of pain can be resolved in an instant in a way that would never have been possible if they were alive. I'm going to interrupt myself there. So I wrote this about 4 years before my father passed. And so I was reflecting on this, saying this about, an abusive parent or a narcissistic one. And my father was our family abuser. I knew this in ways, but I didn't fully realize it until I was helping coach several women from the local domestic violence support group and realized that my father had all the behaviors and he had a lot of narcissistic behavior as well. And I was able to step up to help him pass, to connect with him frequently in the 2 years prior to his passing and actually be there the week that he passed, which really did show a lot of energetic healing. However, after he passed, I was foaming at the mouth, furious, and I still get really pissed off about it, but that's because he had mounted a campaign against me and used all these very subtle programming ways to distort people's perceptions. And I still feel that one of my siblings specifically, though I see it in another sibling more indirectly, one of my siblings specifically still, I feel like, behaves through those subtle programmings or repeats the subtle programmings. And then I also noticed it with my younger brother brother, who was really the one who's the most damaged by this, respond through those slides as well. But coincidentally, I had a dream last night with my father in it, which never happens, and feels like an indication to let go of the pain of the past, let go of the effects of what my siblings do or don't do. And even I mentioned my ex, who was alive at the time my ex has died, and he was struggling with an illness that affected his behavior as well. It wasn't incurable like narcissism is, but he too, said things that weren't entirely true, and I just really had to learn to let them go and be centered in myself. So it really is a big issue. Could talk a lot more about this, but the bottom line is that you're not crazy. The people who've passed, they're not ghosts, they're just non-physical. I do have to say, you don't have to entertain people in your space just because they've passed. If you wouldn't have entertained them in your space when they were alive, especially with dealing with a narcissist. I had some friends who were narcissists as well, and the best way to detach from them was to ghost them. You certainly don't confront them or say anything honestly to them, but ghosting them and just be non-resistant, stepping aside, is a great way to detach from those energies. Back to the blog. Now there's an additional expansion and awareness of what's beyond this physical plane, and I'm going to be sharing more about those revelations in future blogs. As an exercise this week, should you choose to accept it, is to talk with a loved one who has passed. Sit quietly with a notepad or a journal and write what you think they'd say to you, and then write your response. And when you read it afterwards, you'll be validated that you couldn't possibly have made it up. You can also start by writing what you'd like to tell them and then what the response is. You won't hear actual words necessarily. I usually get impressions and blocks of thoughts, and the more you do this, the easier it becomes. But try this week and see what happens, and leave me a comment below because I love to read your comments. So one of the things I do notice is there are certain times of year where the veil is thinner, holiday times, times with family gatherings. There are areas where people might encounter that the veil is thinner for them, whether they're visiting home or maybe there's spiritual places that create that for them. But I also do think that we're going through an expansion as consciousness where we are naturally becoming aware of the multiple layers of existence. You can take comfort in this, in realizing that we're all still connected. And so loved ones who have passed, we're still connected with them on the non-physical level. When we pass, we get reunited with them regardless of how they've passed. I do feel like we all return to a sea of love. If you miss someone, talk to them, because they're missing being communicated with, and they love to be communicated with. And I really love this journaling technique because I find that if I just try to do it in meditation and just imagine the communication, then I don't have a physical validation of the communication. And writing it down with a notepad or journal or in front of your laptop, or you could even be recording it on your phone, I think that would work. And that way you can hear, read the response afterwards, and it really does validate that what you've done is real and what you've heard is real. And just with this or any energetic technique, the more you do it, the easier it becomes and the more real it becomes for you. So if you like these videos, please click the thumbs up to like them, and please click on the bell icon to subscribe. That way you're telling YouTube to share these videos far and wide and get this information out to someone who really needs it. If you'd like a free sample of one of my consciousness techniques, click on the link below to the Skybox technique. It'll give you an expanded perspective of your life and really help you deal with the global crisis today. And if you'd like some energetic techniques for manifestation, click on the link below to Manifesting Money and Miracles. It's a self-study course where you learn how to change your inner vibration to create transformation in your external world. If you want to know more, my website is joan-newcomb.com. I do individual sessions where I take a look at the essence of who you are and what's going on in your life today, and I can answer any questions you might have. And it's recorded just for you. And it's really powerful and packed full of information, so even a 30-minute session gives you a tremendous amount of information. And if you want to know how to do this for yourself, Manifesting Money and Miracles is a great preparation for my coaching special where I work with you one-on-one and I give you specific consciousness techniques for you to transform your life. So go to my website, joan-newcomb.com, and I'll see you tomorrow with another Morning Musings.